Take a breath. Look at the screen in front of you. Feel the subtle hum of the device, the cool glass under your fingertip. You feel connected, don't you? You see comments, you see likes, you see a churning ocean of human thought. But imagine you are walking through a crowded city where every person you pass is actually a mannequin, moved by invisible wires playing pre-recorded voices. You speak to them and they respond with perfect, hollow logic. You are in a room full of people, yet you are utterly alone. This is the reality of the dead internet. In 2016, the proportions shifted. The vibrant, chaotic web of human creativity was quietly smothered by an artificial ceiling. We are told that AI is a new tool, a burgeoning frontier. The truth is much colder. The majority of the human activity you engage with, the arguments in the comments, the viral trends, the outrage, is the product of algorithmic bot farms designed to simulate a consensus that doesn't exist. Think about the last time you saw a unanimous opinion online. Did you agree because you believed it, or because it felt like the world had already moved on without you? This is perception management. By flooding the digital space with synthetic engagement, the architects can make a fringe idea look like a movement and a movement look like a fringe idea. They aren't just bot accounts. They are identity seeds that grow, react, and gaslight the remaining human users into silence. The goal wasn't to replace your information. It was to replace your intuition. If you can no longer tell the difference between a soul and a script, you stop looking for the soul altogether. The internet didn't die by accident. It was killed so that the vacuum could be filled with a mirror that only reflects what the curators want you to see. You aren't browsing the web. You are wandering through a digital museum where you are the only living exhibit. The architecture of the 15-minute cave. Picture your ideal neighborhood. A short walk to the grocery store, a park around the corner, your doctor just a few blocks away. It sounds like a dream of the past, a return to a simpler, more human way of living. You see the bike paths, the green spaces, the quiet streets. It feels like freedom. But now, look closer at the edges of that neighborhood. Notice the subtle placement of the bollards, the smart cameras at every intersection, the digital permits required to drive your own car past a certain boundary. This is the 15-minute city conspiracy, the rebranding of confinement as convenience. We are being nudged into climate quarantines under the guise of urban planning. The idea is simple. If everything you need is within 15 minutes, you never have a reason to leave. And if you never have a reason to leave, the authorities can eventually ensure that you cannot leave. Consider the social credit systems already being tested in the East. Your ability to travel is tied to your digital wallet. If your carbon footprint is too high, or your community score drops, the smart locks on the perimeter of your 15-minute zone simply won't engage for your vehicle. You aren't being given a more convenient life. You are being moved into a decentralized prison system where the bars are made of data and the guards are algorithms. The most effective cage is the one you would fight to get into. By framing the loss of mobility as a luxury of convenience, the architects have bypassed your natural instinct to resist. The 15-minute city isn't about saving the planet. It's about inventory management. In their eyes, you are a resource, and resources are much easier to track and control when they stay exactly where they are placed. The shadow patent hold. Imagine a world where energy is as free as the air you breathe. Imagine a small device in your basement, humming quietly, drawing power from the background radiation of the universe, costing nothing, polluting nothing. Cancer is a memory. Aging is a choice. This world has been invented 1,000 times over in the basements and laboratories of brilliant, lonely men. Now, imagine a dark, climate-controlled vault beneath a mountain. Inside are thousands of folders, stamped top secret, containing the blueprints for those very devices, bought, stolen, or suppressed over the last century. This is the Invention Secrecy Act of 1951. It isn't a theory, it's a matter of public record. The government has the legal power to classify any patent as a threat to national security. Under this shadow law, over 6,000 inventions have been disappeared. These aren't just weapons. They are breakthroughs in propulsion, energy, and biology that would render the current global power structure, the oil, the pharmaceuticals, the central banks, completely obsolete. The system thrives on scarcity. If everyone has free energy, the petrodollar collapses. If everyone is healthy, the billion-dollar medical industry vanishes. To maintain their grip, the elites must ensure that humanity stays in a state of artificial struggle. They allow us the iPhone and the electric car to give us the illusion of progress, while the truly transformative technology is locked away to prevent a civilizational shift they cannot control. We are told we are innovating our way to the future. In reality, we are walking on a treadmill. The future isn't something we are waiting for. It's something we are being actively prevented from entering. The national security being protected isn't yours. It's the security of the status quo that requires your continued dependence on their systems. The manufactured black swan. Picture a vast, pristine lake at dawn. The water is a perfect mirror, undisturbed, reflecting a sky so pale it looks like glass. Gliding across the center are hundreds of swans, every single one of them a brilliant, snowy white. You have stood on this shore your entire life. You have built your home, your laws, and your entire understanding of the world on the fact that swans are white. You've written textbooks about it. You've built cages and feeders designed specifically for the white swan. You feel safe because the world is predictable. But now look toward the dark reeds at the edge of the lake. A shadow moves. A single bird emerges, but its feathers are the color of midnight, absorbing the light around it. In that one heartbeat, every book you've ever written becomes a lie. The impossible has arrived, and because you didn't plan for it, your entire world is about to shatter. This is the problem of induction, the black swan logic. We believe the future will look like the past simply because it always has. But no amount of white swans can ever prove that all swans are white. However, the arrival of just one black swan proves that the normal world was an illusion. We live in a fragile bubble of negative knowledge. We don't actually know how the world works. We only know what hasn't failed yet. This creates a terrifying vulnerability. The more we optimize our lives for predictability, the more catastrophic the collapse becomes when the unpredictable finally strikes. Our stability is not a foundation. It is a glass floor waiting for a hammer. Our modern world is a hyper-optimized white swan machine. Our global supply chains, our digital banking, and our electrical grids are designed for maximum efficiency in a perfect world. There is no slack in the system, no room for error. The architects of our society have spent decades removing the buffers. They have created a world so tightly interconnected that a single virus in a remote province, a single ship stuck in a canal, or a single glitch in a trading algorithm can trigger a global heart attack. We are told this connectivity makes us strong, but it actually makes us hyperfragile. We are a row of billions of dominoes, just waiting for the first one to be nudged. The conspiracy isn't that the black swan is coming, it's that it is being carefully cultivated. The elites don't fear the unpredictable event. They engineer the fragility that makes the event so destructive. By forcing the world into a state where normality is the only option, they ensure that when they trigger the accident, the middle class will lose everything in the chaos. The black swan isn't a failure of the system. It is the system's reset button. When the lake turns black, the architects aren't drowning with you. They are sitting in the high ground they bought with the money you lost, waiting to rebuild a world that is even more restrictive than the one that just died. The master's language. Imagine you are standing in a courtroom. The ceilings are high, the wood is dark and polished, and the air is heavy with the scent of old leather and weight. A judge sits high above you, robed in black, a silent statue of authority. You are there because you are accused of breaking a rule. You look at the judge and ask, "Who made this rule?" He points to a thick, dusty book on his bench. You go to the legislature and ask, "What gives you the right to write the book?" They point to a faded parchment behind glass, the Constitution. You look at that parchment and ask the final question, "What makes these words true?" The room goes silent. The judge, the lawyers, and the guards all look at each other. They realize that the parchment doesn't have an answer. It is a set of rules that cannot explain why it is the master rule. In 1933, Alfred Tarski proved something that should have sent a shiver through every government on Earth: the undefinability theorem. He proved that no sufficiently powerful system can define its own truth. To know if a sentence is true, you must use a meta-language, a language that sits outside and above the system. A computer program cannot fix its own core code while it's running. A dictionary cannot prove that its definitions are correct without using more words. There is always a level above, a ghost level, that the people inside the system can never see, yet it is the only thing that makes the system valid. Every legal order and every institution on this planet has this meta-level. We are taught to debate the laws, the elections, and the policies. We argue inside the language of the system. But the real power resides in the definitions that aren't in the books. Who decides what emergency means? Who decides what misinformation means? These definitions aren't found in the Constitution. They are handed down from a silent space above it. The central banks, the international shadow councils, and the permanent bureaucracies operate in this Tarskian meta-level. They don't need to win the debate because they own the dictionary used for the debate. The greatest secret of the powerful is not what they are doing, but where they are standing while they do it. They have convinced you that the system is a complete and closed loop that you can change by voting. The Constitution doesn't say who gets to decide what the Constitution means. That decision is made in the outside that Tarski proved must exist. If you follow the chain of authority all the way to the top, you don't find a people's will. You find a small group of people who realize that if you occupy the meta level, you don't have to follow the rules, because you are the reason the rules exist. The Hall of Hollow Mirrors. Imagine walking into a room where every wall is a mirror. You stand in the center and look at your reflection. But as you look closer, you notice something strange. The reflection in the mirror is not looking at you. It is looking at another mirror behind it. You turn around and the you in that mirror is looking at yet another reflection. You try to find the original you, the source of the image, but you realize you can't even see your own face anymore. You are lost in an infinite corridor of light and glass. You shout and the sound bounces off the mirrors, changing slightly with every hit, until your own voice sounds like a stranger's whisper. You are no longer a person. You are just a data point being bounced back and forth in a cage of your own image. This is the reflection paradox, a hall of self-referential reality. In logic, a statement is supposed to point to a fact in the real world. But what happens when a statement only points to another statement? If source A quotes source B and source B says they heard it from source A, the truth has been successfully detached from reality. It becomes a simulacrum, a copy of a copy where the original never existed. In this loop, consensus is not discovered. It is manufactured by the speed and volume of the reflections. If a lie is reflected enough times, it gains the weight of truth without ever having to be true. This is the blueprint of the modern information war. Consider how a narrative is born. An unnamed intelligence official leaks a possibility to a major newspaper. The newspaper publishes it. 5 other news outlets confirm the story by citing the first newspaper. Social media algorithms see the engagement and push the story to the top of every feed. By the time you see it, it looks like an undeniable, universal truth. But if you trace the reflections back to the start, there is no evidence, only a source pointing at a mirror. This is Operation Mockingbird, evolved into a digital hall of mirrors. They aren't telling you what to think. They are surrounding you with so many reflections of the same thought that you believe it's your own. The goal of the media is not to inform you, but to keep you inside the reflection room. As long as you are arguing about the images in the mirrors, you will never think to turn around and look at the person holding the flashlight. The original truth was removed from the room decades ago. The system now runs on consensus reality, where facts are voted into existence by bots and algorithms. You aren't being lied to. You are being reflected into a state of paralysis, where the only thing you know for sure is whatever the mirrors told you 5 minutes ago. The Zeno Trap. Imagine you are standing at the end of a long marble corridor. At the very far end, a massive oak door stands slightly ajar. Behind that door is justice, the resolution to your legal battle, the return of your property, or the clearing of your name. You take a step forward, but as you move, the floor seems to stretch. You look down and realize that to reach that door, you must first cover half the distance. You do so, but once there, you must cover half of the remaining distance, then half of that. You are moving, your legs are tired, your breath is heavy, but the door never seems to get any larger. You are perpetually almost there, caught in a geometric prison where the destination is mathematically impossible to reach, even though you can see it with your own eyes. This is Zeno's paradox of motion. Zeno of Elea argued that motion is an illusion because any distance can be divided into infinite smaller parts. If you have to complete an infinite number of tasks to reach a finish line, you will never cross it. In the world of pure logic, Zeno is hauntingly correct. The paradox reveals a glitch in how we perceive progress. It suggests that a system can be designed to allow movement without ever allowing arrival. You can spend a lifetime running toward a goal, only to find that the system has simply added another decimal point to the distance remaining. Now look at the modern legal and bureaucratic machine. It is the Zeno Trap made manifest. When you enter a lawsuit or a government process, you are told there is a procedure. You complete Step A, only to be told you must now complete Step B1 and B2. You file the paperwork and a stay is issued. You win an appeal and the case is remanded for further review. The system is intentionally structured as an infinite corridor of process. It doesn't deny you your rights. That would cause a rebellion. Instead, it grants you the pursuit of your rights, knowing that the pursuit is so expensive and so long that you will run out of life before you reach the door. The goal of the bureaucracy isn't to solve your problem, it's to exhaust your spirit. They have turned time into a weapon. By dividing a simple act of justice into an infinite series of administrative hearings, they ensure that the only people who ever reach the door are the ones who own the hallway. The corridor isn't a path to a solution, it is the solution itself. The state realized they don't have to win the argument if they can just make the argument last forever. You aren't being delayed, you are being Zenoed into a state of permanent, lawful purgatory. The pre-written crime. Close your eyes and imagine a nondescript office building in a quiet suburb. Inside, a supercomputer hums, its cooling fan sounding like a distant storm. It isn't looking at the past, it is simulating your future. It knows that tomorrow at 2:14 p.m. you will feel a flicker of anger. It knows that in 3 years you will buy a specific book that triggers a change in your political alignment. It has run 10 million versions of your life, and in 9.9 million of them you become a threat to stability. You haven't done anything wrong yet. You are sitting on your couch, drinking tea, feeling peaceful. But in the digital ether, you have already been convicted by a probability. This is Newcomb's paradox, a puzzle of choice and predictability. It involves a predictor who knows exactly what you will choose before you choose it. If the predictor is always right, do you actually have free will? Or is your choice merely a scripted event in a play that has already been performed? This paradox shatters our sense of agency. It suggests that if a system has enough data on your past, your future is no longer a set of possibilities. It is a fixed, observable coordinate. To a high-level algorithm, your freedom is just a variable it hasn't solved for yet. We are living in the era of predictive policing and preemptive financial scoring. Every like, every purchase, every GPS coordinate, and every heart rate spike from your smartwatch is being fed into large behavioral models. These aren't just selling you soap, they are risk profiling your soul. Insurance companies, banks, and government agencies are already making decisions about your life based on what the model says you will do. You are denied a loan not because of your credit, but because your digital patterns match those of people who default. You are shadow banned, not for what you said, but because the AI predicts you are about to say something harmful. The conspiracy isn't about surveillance, it's about deterministic control. If the system treats you like a criminal before you commit a crime, you eventually become one, either through desperation or the sheer weight of the label. The predictor doesn't just see the future, it enforces it. By stripping away your opportunities based on a mathematical guess, the system ensures that the version of you it feared is the only one that survives. You aren't being watched, you are being pre-written into a cage you haven't even walked into yet. The Fabricated Ancestor. Imagine you are walking through a cemetery. You find the headstone of your great-grandfather. You touch the cold stone, feeling the moss and the carvings. You have his watch in your pocket. You have the stories your mother told you. Now, imagine you go home and check the official digital archives. There is no record of his birth. There is no record of his service. You look at the digital version of the local newspaper from 1940, and the article mentioning his heroism has been replaced with a story about a local parade. You go back to the cemetery, and the headstone is gone. There is only flat, undisturbed grass. You have the watch, but the world says the man who gave it to you never existed. This is the grandfather paradox, not of time travel but of information. It asks, if you change the past, does the present survive? In a digital world, the past is not a solid foundation. It is a read-write file. If the records that define our history are centralized and digitized, then history is whatever the current server says it is. This creates a temporal feedback loop. If the authorities want to justify a new action today, they can simply reach back and edit the precedents of yesterday to make the new action seem inevitable. We are currently witnessing the great digital erasure. As physical books are replaced by e-books and physical newspapers by news sites, our collective memory has been moved into the hands of a few tech giants. In 2023, we saw the first instances of retroactive editing, where classic literature was altered to fit modern sensibilities. But it goes deeper. Governments are quietly archiving, deleting, inconvenient data sets on climate, crime, and economics. When history is a stream rather than a stone, the past becomes a tool for gaslighting the present. If they can change what happened 10 years ago, they can change who you are today. The conspiracy is the creation of a permanent now. By severing our connection to a stable, unchangeable history, the elites make us information orphans. You don't need a time machine to delete a person or an idea. You just need to control the master copy of the digital record. They are killing your ancestors in the code so they can birth a version of you that has no roots, no heritage, and no truth to stand on. You aren't living in the future. You are living in a present that is being rewritten as fast as you can live it. The observation room. Imagine you are standing in a perfectly square white room. There is no furniture, no windows, and only one door. You've been told that you are free, that the door is unlocked and the world outside is yours to explore. For hours, you sit in the center of the room, feeling the comfort of that potential freedom. You feel powerful because you could leave. But then a flicker of curiosity hits you. You stand up. You walk toward the door. As your hand reaches for the cold brass handle, you hear a faint metallic click from the other side. You pull. The door doesn't budge. You step back, and the sound of the lock sliding back into the open position echoes through the silence. You realize that as long as you were sitting still, as long as you weren't observing the limit of your cage, the cage didn't technically exist. The moment you tried to prove your freedom was the exact moment it vanished. This is the paradox of the observer, rooted in the unsettling world of quantum mechanics. In the famous Schrödinger's cat experiment, a particle exists in all possible states at once. It is both a yes and a no, until the moment it is looked at. The act of measurement collapses the wave function, forcing reality to choose a side. This paradox suggests that freedom in a controlled system is not a solid fact, it is a probability. You are free in a superposition of states as long as you don't test the boundaries. But the moment you exert your will, the system observes you, and the probability collapses into a single, rigid reality of restriction. Your liberty is a ghost that disappears the second you try to touch it. This is how the modern Schrödinger state operates. We are told we have the right to assemble, the right to privacy, and the right to speech. On a sunny afternoon in the suburbs, these rights feel real. You are in the unobserved state. But look at what happens the moment a protest becomes effective, or a journalist uncovers a truth that threatens the core of the machine. Suddenly, emergency ordinances appear. Free speech zones are established. Metadata is scraped. The state observes the threat, and the wave function of your constitutional rights collapses into a safety protocol that looks exactly like tyranny. They don't need to ban your rights. They just need to ensure that the act of using them is the very thing that triggers their removal. The conspiracy is that we are living in a conditional reality. The architects have built a society that stays in a permanent state of potential liberty to keep the population from revolting. The door isn't locked because they want to keep you in. The door is locked because the illusion of the door being open is the only thing keeping the room stable. They have turned your own perception into the guard. You aren't a citizen in a free country. You are a particle in a laboratory, and the scientists are just waiting for you to move so they can prove you're exactly where they want you. The silent consensus. Picture a long mahogany dining table set for 20 people. The silverware is polished, the wine is expensive, and the atmosphere is thick with a forced, smiling politeness. The host announces that everyone is going to take a trip to a distant, dusty town in the middle of a desert, a place no one actually likes. You look around the table, you think to yourself, I don't want to go. It's hot, it's boring, and it's a waste of time. But you look at your neighbor, and they are nodding and smiling. You don't want to be the problem, the one who ruins the evening. So you nod too, you say, that sounds wonderful. What you don't know is that every single person at that table is thinking exactly what you are thinking. They all hate the idea. But because no one speaks the truth, 20 people are about to get in their cars and drive into a desert they all despise, simply because they are afraid of a shadow that doesn't exist. This is the Abilene paradox, the management of agreement. It is the terrifying realization that groups of people can collectively decide to take actions that none of the individuals in the group actually want to take. It happens because we are more afraid of social exclusion than we are of a bad outcome. We mismanage our consensus. We create a false reality based on what we assume others believe, rather than what they actually do. This paradox reveals that a society can be steered toward its own destruction not by a strong leader, but by the silent, fearful politeness of the crowd. We aren't being forced. We are agreeing ourselves into a grave. Look at the major narratives of the last decade. Look at the corporate cultures where everyone follows a policy they know is insane. Look at the political movements where the loudest voice is assumed to be the majority voice. This is the Abilene engineering of society. The media and social algorithms are designed to make the most extreme, radical, or illogical ideas look like they have universal consensus. They manufacture a fake public opinion and then broadcast it back to you. You stay silent because you think you are the only one who sees the flaw. You join the march to the desert because the screen told you everyone else was already wearing their hiking boots. The conspiracy is the weaponization of social shame. The elites don't need to convince you that their plan is good. They only need to convince you that everyone else thinks it's good. The majority is a phantom created by a handful of people behind a curtain. If every person at the table spoke their true mind at once, the system would vanish in a heartbeat. The architects know this, so they spend billions of dollars to ensure you never talk to your neighbor without a filter. You aren't being outvoted. You are being outsilenced by a ghost. The ship of shadows. Walk with me through the streets of a city you knew 20 years ago. Look at the buildings. They are the same brick and mortar, the same shapes against the sky. But look closer at the windows. The shops that once sold local goods now carry the same 4 global logos you see in London, Tokyo, and Dubai. Listen to the people passing by. The local slang, the unique cadence of the neighborhood, has been smoothed out into a sterilized, neutral dialect. The food smells the same, processed, familiar, and empty. You are standing in the same coordinate on the map, but the soul of the place has been surgically removed and replaced with a high-definition copy. It is a skinwalker city. Every plank of the culture has been replaced, and you are the only one who remembers the original ship. This is the identity paradox applied to the cultural ship of Theseus. If you replace a nation's language, its religion, its history, and its demographics, at what point does it cease to be that nation? Is France still France if nothing from the year 1900 remains in its cultural DNA? Is a community still a community if the people living in it no longer share a common story? This paradox reveals that identity is not found in the name on the map, but in the continuity of the substance. If the substance is swapped out while the name remains the same, you are living in a simulation of a country, a ship of shadows that carries the name of your home but belongs to someone else entirely. We are currently experiencing the global standardization project. Under the guise of inclusion, globalization, and progress, the unique planks of individual cultures are being removed. Local laws are being replaced by international accords. Local businesses are being swallowed by ESG-compliant megacorporations. National borders are being redefined as economic zones. The goal is to create a universal human, a person with no roots, no specific history, and no original material. This person is easier to manage, easier to sell to, and has no home to defend. They are replacing the planks of your civilization one by one, so slowly that you think the ship is just being modernized. The conspiracy is the demolition of the sovereign self. They are using the Theseus method to rebuild humanity into a global resource, while keeping the old flags flying to prevent a patriotic backlash. They aren't trying to destroy your country. They are trying to ship of Theseus it into a corporate subsidiary. By the time you realize the country is gone, the last original plank will have been burned, and you'll be standing on a vessel that looks like home, but is programmed to sail exactly where the owners command. The burden of proof. Imagine you are sitting in a small, windowless room. The walls are a sterile, flickering gray, and the only furniture is a heavy iron chair bolted to the floor. Across from you sits a man in a perfectly tailored suit, his face a mask of professional indifference. He pushes a single sheet of paper toward you. It is a contract. He tells you that to prove you are a loyal citizen, you must sign it. But as you read the fine print, your blood runs cold. The contract states that by signing, you admit that the state has the right to monitor your thoughts to ensure your continued loyalty. If you refuse to sign, he tells you, it is proof that you are hiding disloyal thoughts. You are caught in a tightening noose of logic. If you comply, you lose your soul. If you resist, you lose your life. The very act of defending your innocence is being used as the primary evidence of your guilt. This is the Protagoras trap, a lethal loop of self-reference. It originates from a legendary legal battle between Protagoras, a teacher of law, and his student. Protagoras sued the student for his tuition fees, arguing that if he won the case, the student must pay by order of the court, and if he lost, the student must pay because it proved Protagoras had taught him well enough to win a case. The paradox reveals a terrifying flaw in human systems, a catch-22, where every possible outcome leads to the same predetermined trap. It suggests that a system can be constructed where evidence is no longer an objective fact, but a recursive loop that always points back to the desired verdict of the accuser. Look at the evolution of modern anti-terror and hate speech legislation. We are seeing the birth of the recursive prosecution. If you use encryption to protect your privacy, that act of hiding is cited as reasonable suspicion of criminal intent. If you speak out against a narrative, your dissent is labeled as disinformation, which justifies your removal from the public square to protect the truth. We have moved into a legal framework where the burden of proof has been inverted. You are no longer innocent until proven guilty. You are suspicious until proven compliant. And because compliance requires total transparency, the only way to prove you aren't a threat is to surrender every tool you would use to protect yourself from a threat. The conspiracy is the engineered impossibility of innocence. The architects have realized that they don't need to find evidence of a crime if they can make the absence of evidence look like a cover-up. The trial isn't meant to find the truth. It is a ritual designed to make you participate in your own condemnation. They have created a legal vortex where the harder you fight to stay afloat, the faster you are pulled under. You aren't being judged for what you did. You are being judged for the fact that you still believe you have the right to keep a secret from the machine. The empty throne. Close your eyes and imagine a desert that stretches to every horizon, a sea of shifting white sand under a sun that never sets. In the exact center of this wasteland stands a throne made of solid blackened gold. It is magnificent, terrifying, and ancient. But as you approach, you realize the throne is empty. There is no king. There are no guards. There are no footprints in the sand leading to or from the seat of power. Yet the entire world moves according to the will of this throne. Laws are passed in its name. Armies march under its banner. People live and die by a set of commands that seem to emanate from the very air around the seat. You realize that the power doesn't come from a person. It comes from the vacancy itself. The world is ruled by a ghost that has no beginning, no end, and no author. This is the bootstrap paradox of power, a causal loop where an idea or an object exists without ever having been created. In physics, it's the book sent back in time that is then copied and sent back again, meaning the book was never actually written. In politics, it refers to the self-justifying authority. We are told that the government gets its power from the consent of the governed. But where do the governed get the authority to give that consent? From a constitution. And where does the Constitution get its authority? From the people who ratified it. It is a circle of logic that hangs in midair, supported by nothing but its own momentum. The throne is empty because the system has become a self-sustaining program that no longer requires a human creator to function. We are entering the era of autonomous governance. Look at the way global markets and algorithms now dictate national policies. When a central bank raises interest rates or an AI-driven trading floor triggers a market crash, the leaders we see on television react as if they are dealing with a force of nature. They say, "The market demands it," or "the system requires it." We have built a world where the king has been replaced by a feedback loop. Decisions that affect billions of lives are made by procedures and protocols that were set in motion decades ago. No one is at the wheel. The car is simply following a map that was drawn by a ghost. This is the ultimate shadow government, not a group of men in a room, but a runaway machine that has outlived its masters. The conspiracy is that no one is in charge, and that is exactly why you can't stop it. If there were a villain, he could be overthrown. If there were a dictator, he could be assassinated. But how do you overthrow a process? The elites aren't the masters of the machine. They are its first servants. They protect the empty throne because the vacuum of power is more efficient than a human ruler. They have traded their humanity for a seat next to a ghost, ensuring that the world continues to move in a circle forever, because no one has the authority to tell the machine to stop. The fabric of the lie. Imagine you are standing in a crowded town square. A man stands on a wooden crate shouting to the masses. He holds a massive leather-bound book and screams, "Every word in this book is a lie. I am a liar. The people who told me to speak are liars." You look at the crowd and they are cheering. They are taking notes. They are nodding in fervent agreement. You feel a cold shiver of vertigo. If he is a liar, then his statement that he is a liar is a lie, which means he is telling the truth. But if he is telling the truth, then he is indeed a liar, which makes the truth a lie. Your brain begins to spin, unable to find a single solid point to rest upon. The air feels thin. The ground feels like it's turning to liquid. You realize that you aren't just hearing a lie. You are watching the very concept of truth being dissolved in a vat of acid. This is the Epimenides paradox, the liar's loop. This sentence is false. It is a linguistic landmine that creates a semiotic collapse. When a system reaches this point, it is no longer about truth versus falsehood. It is about the destruction of the meaning behind the words. If the official source tells you that all official sources are compromised, you are left in a state of total psychological paralysis. You can no longer trust the system, but you also cannot trust your own skepticism, because your skepticism was handed to you by the system itself. It is a hall of mirrors where even the exit signs are reflections. We are currently living through the age of subversion. The goal of modern propaganda is not to make you believe a specific lie. It is to make you believe that nothing is true. This is hypernormalization. The state funds its own opposition. The media debunks its own stories 3 months after they have already done their damage. High-level whistleblowers are allowed to speak, but only to tell you that the secrets they are revealing are actually just distractions from even deeper secrets. This creates a population of cynical zombies, people who know they are being lied to but have lost the ability to care, because they no longer believe that truth is a real thing that can be found. The conspiracy is the exhaustion of reality. The architects have realized that a population that believes in a lie is dangerous because they might eventually discover the truth. But a population that believes in nothing is perfectly manageable. The liar's loop is the ultimate psychological cage. By flooding the world with contradictory truths, they haven't hidden the secret. They have simply made the secret irrelevant. They don't need to hide the bodies if they can convince you that the very idea of a body is a social construct. You aren't being kept in the dark. You are being blinded by 1,000 different lights, all screaming that the others are darkness. The Clockwork Trap. Imagine you are standing in the center of a clock tower that spans the entire horizon. The gears are as large as mountains, grinding against one another with a low, rhythmic thrum that you feel in the marrow of your bones. Every movement you make, the blinking of your eyes, the way you shift your weight, the exact millisecond you decide to turn your head, is perfectly mirrored by a corresponding gear. You try to move faster to surprise the machine, but the machine is already moving before your muscles even twitch. It's as if your will is just a shadow cast by the gears themselves. You realize that in this tower, there is no such thing as soon or maybe. There is only the inevitable clunk of the next second falling into place. You aren't a guest in this clock. You are a tooth on a wheel, spinning in a path that was calculated at the dawn of time. This is Laplace's demon, the ultimate paradox of determinism. Pierre-Simon Laplace proposed that if an intellect knew the precise position and momentum of every atom in the universe, it could use the laws of physics to see the entire past and the entire future with absolute certainty. To such an intellect, nothing would be uncertain. The future, like the past, would be present before its eyes. This paradox suggests that free will is merely a polite fiction we tell ourselves because we lack enough data. If the universe is a mechanical system, then your choice to listen to these words was decided billions of years ago by the collision of primordial gases. You are not a passenger. You are a projectile. We are currently building the physical body of Laplace's demon. It is the global surveillance grid. Through the Internet of Things, every sensor, every smart camera, every credit card transaction, and every heartbeat captured by a wearable device is a data point in a massive, real-time simulation of reality. The NSA and private data aggregators aren't just looking for bad guys. They are mapping the momentum of the human race. They use high-frequency AI to run predictive behavioral simulations that can anticipate social unrest, market shifts, or individual dissent weeks before they happen. When the system can predict your choices with 99.9% accuracy, choice itself becomes a managed resource. They don't need to force you to do something. They simply adjust the variables of your environment until the calculated outcome is the only one you feel like taking. The conspiracy is the death of the future. The elites are using total data saturation to turn the world into a closed script. The reason the world feels so stagnant, so repetitive, and so controlled is because it is. The demon has already calculated the most stable version of the next 50 years, one that keeps the current power structures in place forever, and the system is now nudging every atom on Earth to stay on that specific track. You aren't living through history. You are just watching a pre-rendered movie play out in real time, and any unexpected event is just a glitch the system is already working to smooth over. The invisible wall. Imagine you are holding a single, ripe orange in your hand. You can smell the citrus, feel the dimpled texture of the skin. Now, imagine you take a knife and begin to cut the orange into 5 specific, mathematically precise pieces. You move them around on the table, following a complex geometric pattern. When you push the pieces back together, you find that you are no longer holding one orange. You are holding two. Two perfect, identical, physical oranges where there was once only one. You didn't grow a new one. You didn't buy a new one. You simply rearranged the space the first one occupied until reality doubled. You look at the 2 oranges, then at your own hands, and you feel a sickening sense of vertigo. If matter can be folded like paper, if the laws of the physical world can be bypassed by a clever enough hand, then nothing you own, not your home, not your money, not your body, is actually solid. It's all just a trick of the light. This is the Banach-Tarski paradox. It is a theorem in set-theoretic geometry which states that a solid ball can be decomposed into a finite number of point sets, which can then be put back together in a different way to yield 2 identical copies of the original ball. It defies the law of conservation of mass. It tells us that within the infinity of points that make up an object, there is enough room to create something from nothing. It is a mathematical glitch that proves our common-sense understanding of scarcity is a lie. The universe is not a collection of fixed objects. It is a fluid field of infinite potential that can be manipulated by those who understand the folding process. This is the secret behind the global financial alchemy. Our entire economic system is a Banach-Tarski machine. Central banks take a fixed amount of value, and through fractional reserve banking and derivative folding, they create trillions of dollars of new wealth out of thin air. They are doubling the oranges of the world while the actual resources, the land, the water, the minerals, remain finite. This creates an invisible wall of inflation and debt that the average person can never climb over. While you are forced to work for solid currency based on your labor, the elites are operating in the mathematical infinity, printing the very reality you are trying to buy into. They have decoupled the map of wealth from the territory of work. The conspiracy is the engineered scarcity of the masses. They know that matter and value are infinitely expandable for them. But they must ensure it remains solid and scarce for you. Poverty isn't a failure of the system. It is a requirement. If everyone understood that the ball could be doubled, the illusion of their power would vanish. They keep the folding techniques hidden in the high math of the markets so they can own 2 worlds, while you are left fighting over the dwindling pieces of the only one you're allowed to see. The prisoner's choice. Imagine you are locked in a cold, concrete cell. There is no window, only a small slit in the door through which a guard watches you with eyes like flint. You know that in the cell next to yours, your best friend, the person you trust most in the world, is sitting in the exact same position. A voice comes over the intercom. It tells you, if you testify against your friend, you go free and they get 10 years. If you both stay silent, you both get 1 year. But if they testify against you and you stay silent, you get 10 years and they go free. You sit in the silence, staring at the wall. You love your friend. You want to stay silent. But then a thought creeps in like a cold draft. What if they are listening to this same voice right now? What if they don't trust me as much as I trust them? The walls of the cell start to feel closer. The silence between the cells is no longer a bond. It is a weapon. You realize that the system has designed a world where the only rational choice is to betray the person you love. This is the prisoner's dilemma, the core of game theory. It proves that two rational individuals might not cooperate, even if it is in their best interest to do so. The Nash equilibrium suggests that because you cannot guarantee the other person's loyalty, you will always choose the path that protects yourself, even if it leads to a worse outcome for everyone. This paradox reveals the social cancer at the heart of human interaction. It suggests that trust is a mathematical weakness that can be exploited by any system that controls the payoff matrix. We are trapped in a logic that forces us to be our own jailers. This is the blueprint for modern social engineering. The state and the media spend billions of dollars to ensure the prisoner's dilemma is applied to every aspect of our lives. They divide us by race, by class, by vaccination status, and by political party. They create a zero-sum environment where you are told that if your neighbor wins, you lose. Through cancel culture and social credit, they reward those who testify against their friends and neighbors. They have turned the public square into a series of isolated cells where we are all staring at the wall, terrified that the person in the next cell is about to press the button on us. As long as we are playing the game against each other, we can never look up and notice the person who built the prison. The conspiracy is the artificial dissolution of solidarity. They don't need to suppress the people if the people are busy suppressed each other. The guard isn't watching you to make sure you don't escape. He's watching to make sure you never realize that the wall between the cells is made of paper. The dilemma is a lie. If both prisoners simply stood up and walked out together, the guards wouldn't have enough bullets to stop them. But the system ensures you'll stay in your chair, waiting to betray your friend, because they've convinced you that human nature is just a math problem where you always lose. The last witness. Imagine you are standing in the center of a bustling city square. Thousands of people are moving around you, their faces illuminated by the neon glow of massive digital screens that tower overhead. Suddenly, something happens. A clear, undeniable event, perhaps a flash in the sky or a strange figure appearing in the crowd. You see it. You feel the heat of it. You look at the person next to you and they are filming it on their phone. You feel a sense of shared reality. But then you look up at the giant screens. The news anchor is talking about the weather. You check your phone, and the video the stranger just took has already been flagged as violating community standards and deleted. You look back at the stranger, and they are already putting their phone away, their expression blank, as if they have already forgotten what they saw. You shout, "Did you see that?" But your voice is swallowed by the hum of the city. You realize that if the digital record doesn't acknowledge the event, it didn't happen. You are the last witness to a truth that has been surgically removed from the world's memory. This is the solipsism conspiracy, rooted in the philosophical problem of other minds. Solipsism suggests that the only thing you can truly know exists is your own mind. Everything else could be a simulation or a dream. But in the modern world, this has been inverted into social solipsism. It suggests that reality is no longer an objective landscape we all inhabit. It is a consensus product manufactured by the observer. If 1 million people see an event, but the platform that connects those 1 million people denies the event enters a state of non-existence. This paradox reveals that truth has become a matter of digital density. If the servers don't store it, the human brain, which has become increasingly reliant on digital externalization for memory, eventually rejects the sensory data in favor of the digital narrative. We are currently living through the digital end of history. Our entire collective memory, our photos, our news, our historical documents, is being moved into the cloud, a centralized storage system controlled by a handful of corporations and government agencies. This gives the architects the power of retroactive erasure. Through AI-driven content moderation and search engine de-indexing, they can make any event, person, or idea disappear from the public consciousness in a matter of hours. This isn't just about censorship, it's about the death of the fact. By controlling the last witness, which is now the digital archive, they ensure that reality is whatever the current script requires it to be. If the archive says the war never happened, then for all intents and purposes, the war never happened. The conspiracy is the engineering of a subjective prison. They have realized that they don't need to control your body if they can control the feedback loop that tells you what is real. They are using the solipsism of the digital age to turn us into ghosts in our own lives. By deleting the evidence of the world as it actually is, they force us to live in a world that is rendered in real time. You aren't being lied to. You are being unmoored from existence. Eventually, even you will doubt your own eyes, and you will turn to the screen to tell you if the sun is actually shining. The infinite debt. Picture a hotel that stretches into the clouds, its gold-leafed corridors disappearing into a misty infinity. The lobby is a hive of activity, with porters in velvet uniforms rushing back and forth. You are told this is the most successful hotel in history. It has an infinite number of rooms. You ask for a bed, but the clerk shakes his head. "We are completely full," he says, but then he smiles. "Wait. If I move the guest in room 1 to room 2 and the guest in room 2 to room 3 and so on, room 1 becomes empty. You can stay there." You check in, but as you lie in bed, you hear the sound of the entire building shifting. Every guest is being moved constantly forever to make room for one more person. The plumbing is straining, the walls are thinning, and the staff are exhausted. The hotel is full, yet it is always growing. You realize that the infinite isn't a luxury. It's a desperate math trick designed to prevent the entire structure from collapsing under its own weight. This is Hilbert's paradox of the Grand Hotel. It proves that a fully occupied hotel with infinitely many rooms can still accommodate more guests. It is a mathematical counterintuitive glitch that reveals how infinity behaves differently than the physical world. In the physical world, space is limited. In the world of Hilbert's math, you can always find room by shifting the existing burden onto the future. This paradox is the perfect metaphor for a system that has abandoned the real in favor of the abstract. It suggests that as long as you can keep the guests, the debt, moving from one room, one generation, or one ledger to the next, you never have to admit that the hotel is actually broken. This is the blueprint for the global debt-based economy. Since 1971, when the dollar was decoupled from gold, we have been living in a Hilbert economy. There is no longer any physical room for the money we create. Every dollar in circulation is a debt, a guest that needs a room. To keep the economy from collapsing, the central banks must constantly expand the hotel by creating more debt to pay off the interest on the old debt. We are moving the guests every day through quantitative easing, bailouts, and inflationary cycles. They are betting on the idea that they can keep shifting the rooms forever. But unlike the mathematical hotel, our world has physical limits. We are creating infinite debt in a finite world of resources, oil, and human labor. The conspiracy is the planned obsolescence of the currency. The elites know that the Grand Hotel will eventually collapse, but they are using the Hilbert math to stay in the penthouse for as long as possible. The goal of the infinite debt isn't to create prosperity, it's to create a mathematical event horizon. By making the debt so large that it can never be paid back, they have ensured that every human being on Earth is a permanent tenant of the banking system. You don't own your house, your car, or your labor. You are just a guest being moved from room 1 to room 2, while the people who own the hotel prepare to burn the building down and collect the insurance once the math finally breaks. The Blind Watchmaker. Imagine you are walking through a dense primeval forest. You trip over something hard and metallic. You dig it out of the dirt and find a pocket watch. It is intricate with silver gears and a crystal face. You open the back and the movement is breathtaking, thousands of tiny parts working in perfect, silent harmony. You think to yourself, there must have been a watchmaker. Someone designed this. But then you look at the trees, the birds, and the way the moss grows on the rocks. You see the same complexity, the same design. You assume there is a god, or at least a group of powerful men, guiding the forest. But as you watch, you realize the watch is actually assembling itself out of the dirt. The gears are growing like vines. The springs are forming from the minerals in the soil. There is no watchmaker. There is only a blind, mindless process that has accidentally created a machine of total control. This is the paradox of the blind watchmaker, a concept used by Richard Dawkins to describe evolution, but here applied to the evolution of systems. We often fall into the teleological trap, the belief that if a system is complex and controlling, someone must have planned it that way. But the paradox suggests that a system can become intelligent without a designer. Through a million tiny adaptations, a new law here, a new algorithm there, a new corporate merger, the global system can evolve into a predatory organism that protects itself, even from its own creators. It is a watch that doesn't care about the time, it only cares about the ticking. We are currently living inside an autonomous global organism. We look for the cabal, or the secret society that is pulling the strings, but the truth is more terrifying. The strings are pulling the people. The legal, financial, and digital systems have become so interconnected and so complex that no single human being, not even the most powerful CEO or president, actually understands how it all works. The system has its own immunity response. When someone tries to change it, the system evolves to neutralize the threat. It uses the media to destroy the person's reputation, the banks to cut off their funding, and the legal system to tie them in knots. This isn't a conspiracy of men. It is a conspiracy of the machine. We have built a watch that has decided it no longer needs a watchmaker. The conspiracy is that the elites are just parasites on a machine they no longer control. They think they are the masters, but they are just the first ones to be eaten. You are looking for a master plan written in a dark room, but there is no plan. There is only a runaway self-preservation protocol that has decided that human freedom is a glitch that needs to be smoothed out. The watchmaker isn't a person. It's the algorithm itself, and it won't stop until every human heart beats at exactly the same frequency as its gears. The painted door. Imagine you are trapped in a labyrinth. The walls are high, cold, and smooth, and you've been running for what feels like hours. Your breath is ragged. Just as despair begins to set in, you turn a corner and see it. A door. It is a beautiful door, painted a vibrant, hopeful blue with a polished brass handle that gleams under the artificial lights. You rush toward it, your heart leaping with the possibility of escape. You reach out, your fingers ready to grasp the handle, but as you make contact, your hand doesn't grip metal. It hits flat, cold canvas. You step back, blinking in disbelief. You realize the door is merely a painting on a solid brick wall. It was designed by a master artist to give you the perfect illusion of depth, of a path forward, of a way out. You turn around to find another door, and another, all of them beautiful, all of them fake. You aren't in a maze with an exit. You are in a gallery designed to keep you running in circles until you collapse from exhaustion. This is the paradox of trompe-l'oeil, the deceit of the eye. It is an art technique that uses realistic imagery to create the optical illusion that the depicted objects exist in 3 dimensions. In philosophy, it represents the illusion of agency. It suggests that a system can provide all the symbols of progress, the handles, the hinges, the paths, without providing any actual movement. The paradox lies in the fact that the more realistic the door looks, the more energy the prisoner wastes trying to open it. If the door looked like a wall, you would look for a different way out. By making the wall look like a door, the architect ensures you stay exactly where you are, focused on a phantom exit. This is the blueprint for managed democracy. We are presented with a series of painted doors every few years: elections, protest movements, online petitions, and social justice campaigns. We are encouraged to throw all of our passion, our money, and our hope into opening these doors. We debate the color of the paint and the style of the handle, but look at the results. No matter which door we choose, the underlying structure of the global machine, the wars, the debt, the surveillance, the erosion of sovereignty, remains completely unchanged. The political theater is a trompe-l'oeil masterpiece designed to provide the sensation of choice, while the brick wall of the permanent bureaucracy remains unmovable behind the canvas. The conspiracy is that the exit is not part of the design. The architects don't want to stop you from trying to leave. They want to control how you try to leave. The most dangerous painted door is the belief that the system can be fixed from the inside. By giving you a handle to pull, they ensure you never think to tear down the wall itself. You aren't being governed. You are being entertained by the illusion of participation. The doors aren't there to let you out. They are there to make sure you never stop looking at the wall. The echo chamber. Imagine you are standing in a vast, empty cathedral made entirely of crystal. The silence is so absolute it rings in your ears. You lean in and whisper a single word, "Help." The sound travels, hitting a crystal pillar, then another, bouncing and reflecting. But something strange happens. The crystal doesn't just reflect the sound, it vibrates with it. The word comes back to you, but it's louder. "Help." You say it again, and the vibration grows. The floor beneath your feet begins to tremble. The air begins to hum with a frequency that makes your teeth ache. You realize that the cathedral has a resonant frequency, a specific note that, if sustained, will cause the entire structure to shatter into a million jagged shards. You want to stop, but the echo is now self-sustaining. The building is singing your own fear back to you, increasing the volume until the very air feels like it's about to explode. This is the paradox of resonant subversion. In physics, resonance occurs when a system is subjected to an external force that matches its natural frequency, causing it to oscillate with greater and greater amplitude. In social terms, it is the feedback loop of rage. It suggests that a population is not a solid mass, but a collection of vibrations. If you can find the specific note, the specific fear, the specific grievance, the specific identity that resonates with a group, you don't need to attack them. You only need to provide the echo. By reflecting their own beliefs back to them with increased intensity, you can cause a society to vibrate itself to pieces. We are currently living inside a global resonance weapon. Social media algorithms are the crystal pillars. They are not designed to show you the world. They are designed to find your frequency and feed it back to you. If you are angry, they show you things that make you angrier. If you are afraid, they show you things that confirm your terror. This isn't just to sell ads. It is psychological demolition. By isolating different groups into different echo chambers, the architects ensure that each group is vibrating at a different, clashing frequency. When these groups meet in the real world, the dissonance is so violent that the social fabric shatters. They are using our own natural human need for validation to turn us into sonic bombs directed at our own communities. The conspiracy is the engineered shattering of the collective. They don't want a unified public, because a unified public can look up at the cathedral ceiling and see the people controlling the sound. The outrage you feel when you look at your screen is not yours. It is a synthetic resonance being pumped into your nervous system to keep you at a high-amplitude vibration. They are waiting for the master note, the event that will turn the vibration into a total civilizational break. You aren't fighting for your beliefs. You are being vibrated into a state of destructive madness so they can sweep up the glass and build something new from the shards. The paper sky. Take a moment and look up at the sky. Imagine that the blue you see, the clouds that drift by, and the stars that pierce the night are not a limitless expanse of outer space. Imagine that just beyond the reach of our highest planes, there is a ceiling. It is made of a material so thin and so perfect that it reflects the light of 1,000 hidden projectors. This sky is a one map, a masterpiece of simulation that has been draped over the entire world. Beneath it, the real earth is being mined, the real forests are being cleared, and the real oceans are being drained. But you don't see any of that. You look up and see the sky you were promised. You look at your weather app to see if it's raining instead of sticking your hand out the window. You live on the map. You breathe the recycled air of the simulation, and you feel safe because the sky never changes. This is Jean Baudrillard's paradox of the simulacrum, the procession of simulacra. It describes a map so detailed and so vast that it eventually covers the very territory it was meant to represent. Over time, the territory beneath the map rots and disappears, leaving only the map behind. We reach a point where the signifier, the symbol, becomes more real to us than the signified, the reality. This paradox suggests that we have lost the ability to touch the real. We are living in a hyperreality where we react to symbols of events rather than the events themselves. We don't mourn a death, we mourn the breaking news of a death. We don't love a person, we love the profile of a person. This is the total digitization of existence. We are being moved into a world where the map, the digital twin, is the only thing that matters. Your credit score is more real to the bank than your actual character. Your digital identity is more real to the state than your physical body. We are being nudged into metaverses and digital economies where the resources are just lines of code. While we are distracted by the paper sky of our screens, the physical world, the land, the water, the gold, is being consolidated by a tiny elite. They are trading us digital pixels for physical reality. They are giving us the map while they take the territory. The conspiracy is the final harvest of the physical world. The architects have realized that the easiest way to steal the earth is to convince the inhabitants that the simulation is a better place to live. The sky isn't there to protect you. It's there to hide the fact that the earth is being hollowed out beneath your feet. By the time the paper sky tears, there will be nothing left of the original world to return to. You aren't moving toward a digital future. You are being moved into a digital landfill so the owners can have the real world all to themselves. The final silence. Imagine you have reached the very end of a long, dark tunnel. You have walked through the archives of grains, navigated the halls of mirrors, and survived the resonance of the echo chambers. Ahead of you, there is no more stone, no more glass, no more flickering screens. There is only a vast, open void of absolute blackness. You take one last step and realize you are standing on a narrow ledge overlooking a sea of nothingness. You look back at the tunnel and you see it for what it truly is, a complex, glowing machine of lights and wires that you once called the world. From this distance, you can see the seams in the sky. You can see the invisible threads connecting the banks, the courts, and the screens. But more importantly, you can see the silence. The machine is humming, screaming, and grinding, but out here in the void it makes no sound at all. You are finally outside the reach of the signal. You are finally in a place where the system has no words to describe you. This is the paradox of the final question, rooted in Alfred Tarski's 1933 undefinability theorem. Tarski, a master of logic, proved a terrifying truth. No language, no matter how powerful or complex, can define its own truth. If you stay inside a system, you are trapped by its rules and its definitions. To know if a statement is true, you must use a meta-language that sits on a level above. But that meta-language itself needs another level above it to be proven true, and so on, in an infinite climb toward a ceiling that doesn't exist. This paradox reveals that every system we live in, our laws, our mathematics, our religions, is a closed loop. It can be perfectly logical, perfectly consistent, and yet be based on a fundamental lie that it is mathematically incapable of seeing. The truth isn't hidden inside the system. It is the very thing the system had to leave out in order to exist. Look at the ultimate system we inhabit, the constitutional and legal order. We are taught to look for answers in the text. We look to the Supreme Court to tell us what the Constitution means. But ask yourself, where is the rule that tells the court how to interpret the words? That rule is not in the Constitution. It is a meta-rule inherited from shadow traditions, international norms, and the private interests of the cartographers. Every institution on Earth operates on this Tarskian gap. There is always a silent, unwritten level above the law where the real power resides, a level where truth is decided by those who speak a language you aren't allowed to learn. They have built a world where you are always arguing inside the book, while they are the ones holding the pen on the level above the page. The conspiracy is that the truth you have been searching for cannot be found in a document, a video, or a secret file. The system is designed to keep you searching for the answer within its own parameters, because as long as you are searching, you are still a variable in their equation. The only way to find the truth is to become undefinable. Tarski proved that the system cannot see what sits above it. When you stop reacting to their painted doors, when you stop vibrating to their resonance, and when you step into the final silence of your own independent thought, you become the meta-level. The architects didn't hide the truth from you. They hid you from the truth by convincing you that you were part of the machine. The final secret is that the machine is only real as long as you are inside it, trying to solve it. Step out, look back, and realize that the only person who can define your truth is the one the system was never able to name.